To hear Newt Gingrich tell it, there are lies, damned lies, and then there's Mitt Romney. It's part of a take-no-prisoners strategy that began after his campaign was listing in December. And our next guest joined Newt's then new super PAC. Joining us, Rick Tyler, a senior advisor to Winning Our Future. Good afternoon, sir.
Martin, how are you? I'm glad to be here.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Gingrich has been complaining about being outspent by Mitt Romney, but he raised $10 million in the most recent quarter and $5 million alone this month. And then you also have Sheldon Adelson's millions helping your super PAC. That's correct, isn't it?
That's what I've read in the paper, yes, sir.
So why is he complaining about being outspent when he's flush with millions of dollars himself?
Well, we think we were outspent here in Florida by I mean, all accounts I can tell is they spent anywhere from $17 to $20 million. We spent $6. I'm not sure how much the campaign has spent, but we've clearly been outspent because we have less cash. We need to reserve cash going forward. That's what we've done, and we did our best to compete here. But there was no question that Mitt Romney spent a lot more money here and spent almost all of it on negative attacks against Newt Gingrich.
And thinking for a moment about the specific relationship with Sheldon Adelson and his wife, was it you that negotiated that? Because obviously Newt is not allowed to, is he?
No, no. I mean, well, sort of. I don't want to get into the technical rules
no,
of it
yes.
all.
Which one would you like?
Well, no. Okay. Well, look. If the rules are, he can speak to any donor he wants. The only stipulation is he can't ask for more than $2,500. That's the rule. But he can talk to any donors he wants, and he can encourage donors to give to anybody he wants to.
But
those are the rules. I did not know. I did not personally speak to Mr. Adelson.
So who negotiated that deal for him to donate $5 and then $10 million?
I'm not going to comment on it.
Why not?
I don't speak for my donors. I don't represent them. I don't want to put words in their mouth. If you want to know why they supported Newt Gingrich, I would ask them. I think they would have a good answer.
No, I'm not asking you why. I'm asking you who did the deal with Sheldon Adelson. That's all.
I'm not going to get in. I'm not going to get into the process of how money is raised.
Well, obviously that raises many questions. But let's move on. Mr. Romney was today asked about the lessons he learned in South Carolina. Here's what he said in part. Listen to this, sir.
In South Carolina, we were vastly outspent with negative ads attacking me, and we stood back and spoke about President Obama.
Romney there saying he was vastly outspent in South Carolina. Is that the way you remember it?
No, I mean, you've heard it all now. I mean, this guy is so at odds with the truth. I almost think it's got to be like a birth defect or something. He just doesn't understand when he's not telling the truth because he says it so convincingly. I mean, it's really pathological. The idea that we outspent him in South Carolina is patently ridiculous.
So you're fairly clear that Mitt Romney is a liar from birth. Is that what you're saying?
Well,
you said he had a birth
I can't explain
defect.
how he. I can't explain how this guy lies so convincingly.
Okay.
I mean, he lies about his record, he lies about Newt's record, and now he's lying about how much money was spent in South Carolina. We know we spent $3.5 million. Add that to the campaign and then take theirs and add it up.
Okay,
I'm confident that they outspent us.
Let's focus for a moment, sir, if we may, on lying. Mr. Gingrich and his supporters today released a robocall, as you know. And let me just find... Right, and it was targeting elderly Romney for cutting funding for kosher meals. Okay? Take a listen to this.
Mitt Romney vetoed a bill paying for kosher food for our seniors in nursing homes. Holocaust survivors, who for the first time were forced to eat non-kosher.
First of all, sir, what do you know about that robocall?
I don't know anything about it. As you know, lots of calls go out for lots of nefarious reasons, and I have no idea what the source of that call is, so I really can't comment on it.
And yet, do you know that the Massachusetts legislature overrode the veto? The kitchens were never eliminated.
Yes, but Mitt Romney vetoed it. That's the point.
No, sir, but the point is, those kitchens were never eliminated. Why did you not include that, or whoever was responsible, include that in the robocall if you're concerned about telling the truth?
You'll have to ask them. Winning Our Future did not do robocalls with that text included.
So
I personally approved all the text.
Okay, so we can't talk to you about Sheldon Adelson and we can't talk to you about that robocall. Can I ask you this, sir? After his second wife, Newt Gingrich's second wife, had given an interview where she said he wanted an open marriage so that he could continue sleeping with his then mistress Callista, Mr. Gingrich said, both during the debate and in a subsequent interview, that he'd offered several independent witnesses who would disprove his wife's claim. But that was a lie, because his spokesman, R.C. Hammond, admitted that Mr. Gingrich didn't offer any individuals aside from his two daughters?
First of all, I don't comment on the Speaker's personal life. I'm not his personal spokesperson.
No, I'm asking you about lying,
matter.
sir. You've complained, and absolutely, you've had every opportunity, sir, on our broadcast to complain. You've accused Mitt Romney of having a birth defect that means he can't tell the truth from falsehood. And I'm asking you...
Well, he can't tell the truth.
Well, I'm asking...
He can't tell the truth.
Sure, and I've allowed you to say that, sir, but I'm interested in why Mr. Gingrich would lie twice in a debate and with the moderator afterwards about something that he knew was untrue, that his spokesman R.C. Hammond eventually admitted was untrue. Why would he do that?
I don't know the details.
No answer on that. Okay, let's move on. What about the claim that Mr. Gingrich is the true inheritor of Ronald Reagan's legacy?
Well, that's what Nancy Reagan said.
Really?
And that's what Michael Reagan's been saying in Florida for the last 2 days with Newt Gingrich. Michael Reagan is here in Florida campaigning with Newt Gingrich, saying that Newt Gingrich is the inheritor of the conservative legacy. Started with Barry Goldwater, went to Newt Gingrich. I mean, went to Ronald Reagan, then went to Newt Gingrich. Do you have an alternative? Do you really think Mitt Romney's the inheritor of the conservative movement?
That's not what I'm asking about. So we're talking about your... We're talking about your candidate for the moment.
If it isn't Newt who led the Republicans to victory for the first time in 40 years, who balanced the budget, jobs were created, reform welfare, cut taxes, then I'd like to know who it is.
Reagan's biographer, Lou Cannon, contends that Gingrich had nothing to do with the Reagan Revolution. So why does Mr. Gingrich continue to make false claims about his relationship to the Reagan presidency?
Nobody's claiming that Newt took full responsibility, but I will say this. Newt Gingrich was one of the orchestrators of the first Capitol Steps events, which included Ronald Reagan, which led to the victory of the Republicans winning the Senate. He also worked with Jack Kemp, who passed Reagan's economic program that led to a massive job creation. He was also the only guy who believed the Republicans should be the majority and worked for 16 years to get him in the majority.
Indeed.
And has delivered that with 52 seats.
May, I'm
you
delighted,
don't want to hear any of that,
sir,
though, do you?
Sir, absolutely, I do, sir, but I would just like to stay for one moment on what Mr. Gingrich has been hammering relentlessly. It's the issue of his relationship to Ronald Reagan. Now, he blasted Reagan, as you know, for his summit with Gorbachev, saying, and I'm quoting Mr. Gingrich, it was the most dangerous summit for the West since Hitler met Neville Chamberlain in 1938 in Munich. And in return, Gingrich, as you know, is mentioned once in Reagan's diaries, where the late former president says Newt's ideas on a budget freeze would cripple our defense program. So the point I'm making to you is you complain about Mitt Romney lying, and yet your own candidate is evidentially not telling the truth repeatedly. He lies repeatedly.
Newt also complained about Ronald Reagan wanting to raise taxes in 1982. So when Newt was complaining, look, with Ronald Reagan, he was a great president. His legacy holds. I'm not disputing that, but there were times in 1982 Ronald Reagan wanted to raise taxes. Guess what? Newt was opposed to it. Does that mean he's anti-Reagan? Of course not. It's ridiculous.
Well, it's slightly false, some would say, to claim to be the sole inheritor of Reagan's legacy. Let's move on. There are some commentators...
He didn't say that. Nancy Reagan said that.
Sir, well, as you know, Nancy Reagan and sources close to her have denied ever saying that, and apparently
It's on video. Everybody's seen it. The video's gone viral on YouTube.
Video,
you can watch it yourself.
I've seen the video, sir, and he refers...
So are you telling the truth about it or not?
She refers to Mr. Gingrich and members of Congress, as you know. And but let's move on for a moment.
And who was leading the Republicans in the Congress?
Let's move on. There are some commentators and historians... Okay. Well, sorry, sir, if I may, you've refused to answer specific questions that I put to you earlier.
You asked me questions I can't answer that I have nothing to do with. So we'll move. All right,
some commentators and historians who actually say that Mr. Gingrich's most egregious lie concerns the notion that he's an outsider and not a lobbyist. Now, you know, because you're a historian of these matters, that he was elected to Congress in 1979. He served for 20 years, 4 of which as Speaker. Subsequently, he opens an office on K Street. He consults for numerous companies. He opens doors. He peddles influence, as Mitt Romney says. And yet he claims to be an outsider. That, sir, has got to be patently false, hasn't it?
No, of course it isn't, because Newt Gingrich made his whole career by being the anti-establishment. Anybody who studied Newt Gingrich's career knows that he not only shook up Washington for the establishment Democrats, he also shook up Washington for the establishment Republicans, which is why they all don't like him. You know, there's a reason the establishment doesn't like Newt Gingrich. It's because they know if he gets to Washington, he's going to change things. Mitt Romney will just manage to decay. So that's just a falsehood. That's not true. And by the way, Newt Gingrich never lobbied. I worked for him for 12 years. I attended those classes every year so that we didn't even approach lobbying. And by the way, Mitt Romney who claims to have saved the Olympics, and I'll give him credit for that. You know how he did it? Influence peddling. He had a $3.3 million lobbying contract to help save the Olympics. So don't tell me about influence peddling and Mitt Romney. It's patently ridiculous.
Mr. Tyler, I think we can safely conclude that both of them have probably misrepresented the truth in equal measure. Thank you very much for joining us.